Welcome back, Defenders. We took a small break, but Ukraine is back at striking Russian oil refineries. Major oil and chemical facilities hit deep inside Russia in a coordinated drone campaign. Fires erupted at one of Russia's primary producers of polyethylene and polypropylene, and at two oil refineries that supply fuel to Russian forces. For the first 3 years of this war, Ukraine did not have this capability. The ability to launch hundreds of drones and missiles simultaneously into Russian territory. 2 nights ago, Ukraine launched 210 kamikaze drones and 10 missile drones into Russian territory. This is what the Russians have been doing to Ukraine for 3 years now, and Ukraine now has the domestic production to do the exact same thing to Russia. This is a big deal. So what did Ukraine strike? And they struck the NS Oil refinery in Novospasskoye. This is where this is located on the map. This is a relatively small refinery. I'll explain in a second. The second refinery is the Mari Oil Refinery in the Mari El Republic. This is east of Moscow and north of Kazan. And this is, once again, a relatively small refinery, but Ukraine is eventually getting to them all. When we go to the war map, this is the Mari El Refinery. It's about 1,000 kilometers from the border, only produces 1.4 million tons of refined products per year. The other refinery isn't even on this map. It produces 0.6, but it's so small that I think the Ukrainian who makes this chart didn't even include it. But I'm sure it's supplying refined products to the Russian military, so it needs to be targeted. And I think Ukraine is going to keep targeting these smaller refineries until they stop producing as well. Ukraine attacks 2 oil depots and destroys military equipment in Russian-occupied Crimea. This is a small oil depot in Simferopol, and as you can see, that's a pretty big oil depot fire. The air quality in Crimea has not been great the last month. The thermal power plant in Simferopol was also struck. I'm guessing Ukraine is trying to permanently knock out the power on the Crimean Peninsula. Simferopol, if you don't know this, this is where this is located. This is kind of central Crimea, northeast of Sevastopol. Ukraine also struck the Stav-Rolin-Zhovod chemical plant. This fire in the distance, but it was geolocated where this video was taken from an apartment block. This is I think the chemical plant here, but Ukraine struck it. Ukraine says it struck 2 Russian radar stations and a launch pad for missiles. I've seen so many of these videos, they kind of look the same to me, but I guarantee they're all different. And yes, Ukraine's drone crews are phenomenal. Once again, they took out Russian Podlet K-1 radars and surface-to-air missile launchers for an S-300. I can link these videos down below if you want to see radars worth tens of millions of dollars going boom. Ukraine keeps blowing them up. Russia keeps sending more to Crimea. Let's follow up on this story. Death toll in Russian artillery ammo plants rises to 23. This was an ammunition factory in Chelyabinsk, and this exploded for some reason on October 22nd. And as you can see, when an artillery factory blows up, a lot of people die. I don't know if Ukraine had anything to do with this, but this might have been incompetence or Russian partisans sabotaging the plant. This is an interesting chart, and this shows all of the confirmed incidents of friendly fire. This is the Russian military shooting down their own planes and helicopters. Over the last 4 years, there's been 17 confirmed cases, but potentially there's more. I think people are starting to notice this now and think about it, because this is going to become more common. As Ukraine starts launching hundreds of drones and missiles into Russian-controlled territory, Russia wants to send out their jets and helicopters to shoot them down air to air, but then that runs the risk of fratricide. Russian air defense crews, I think, are going to continue accidentally shooting down their own jets and helicopters, thinking they're Ukrainian drones. After U.S. sanctions Lukoil to sell assets to firm founded by Putin ally. This is a follow-up on the fallout of Trump sanctioning Rosneft and Lukoil. Russian oil company Lukoil said on October 30th that it had reached a deal to sell its foreign assets to Gunvor, a company founded by an ally of President Putin. This is the problem with sanctions. You sanction an individual or company, and they just sell or transfer everything to someone who's not sanctioned. So if Trump wants to be serious about forcing the Russians to the peace table, in the next sanctions package, we need to sanction Gunvor. And then the cycle repeats. Tanker carrying Russian oil to India U-turns after U.S. sanctions Rosneft and Lukoil. This is the short-term benefits. This is confusing, this is disruptive. This is a perfect example. This is the Shadow Fleet tanker Furia, and it's currently carrying 730,000 barrels of Russian crude to India. But because Lukoil was sanctioned, it just stopped. This is the Danish Straits, this is the Baltic Sea. It got this far and then just turned around, and it's currently anchored, waiting for directions. But they're still operating at costs. They're still paying the crew something. And the ship is just idling in the Baltic Sea. That is the benefit of these sanctions in the short term. Russia's central bank has lost what remained of its independence. This is a good thing. I want Putin to take control of the central bank away from this woman, because she's actually very talented at her job. And she's been maintaining interest rates in Russia above 20% for a while, because inflation in Russia is so horrible. Because there's so much economic stimulus from defense spending, it's killing the civilian economy, these high interest rates. So Putin has told his central banker, you have to just keep lowering them. Every time you meet, every time you make an announcement, just keep lowering it. We don't care what the inflation rate is. We just want people to be able to afford to borrow money so they can keep their businesses going. But when you have double-digit inflation, your money becomes worthless, which is why Russians snap up records amount of gold as sanctions reshape savings habits. Russians have been buying gold at an unprecedented pace since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, with Western sanctions and restrictions on foreign currency transactions. Russians have purchased 282 tons of physical gold in the form of bars, coins, and jewelry since 2022, according to Bloomberg. That's the gold we know of. But it actually might be worth checking this out, because this is pretty incredible. When you look at the performance of gold as an asset over the last 50 years, it barely beats inflation. You're much better off being in bonds or stocks. But when there's economic uncertainty, especially when there's war, people panic buy gold because gold is universal. It'll always hold its value. And when, all of the global economies collapse or whatever, people will be trading in gold coins again. But this is incredible. Look at the performance of gold over the last 6 months, up 21%. 1 year performance, up 44%. The 5-year performance of gold, and most of this, it was just flat, up 114%. When you compare that to the 5-year performance of the US stock markets, this is the S&P 500, the S&P is up 108% over 5 years, and gold is up 114%. This is because of war. This is because of sanctions. This is because of uncertainty. Wealthy people panic buy gold if they think society's going to collapse. I don't think that's going to happen, but for any of you out there holding gold, congratulations, Russia drove up the prices. And Russians are actually panicked about being trapped inside Russia. We've been discussing for 4 years now, should there be a travel ban on Russians going to the EU or going to any NATO country? And it actually looks like Russia's going to take that decision away from us. And they're just going to ban their citizens from traveling to NATO countries, or really just any democracy. But this is what this Russian woman is saying in response to hearing that the Russian State Duma is planning a bill to ban Russians from, vacationing in NATO countries. So friends, according to today's news, the State Duma is planning to consider a law that would prevent Russians from traveling to NATO countries. I'm just wondering how it will be implemented. I want to go to Italy or Montenegro. It also belongs to NATO. I mean, it's in NATO, and what? I won't be able to? Can I fly to Istanbul? I mean, I buy tickets to Istanbul, but I can't go? Where can I fly? Based on this law, I will not be able to fly anywhere. And what remains? Buying a ticket here through the Arab Emirates because it's not a NATO country, and then fly somewhere from here? You know, I recently wrote a post about bans on my Telegram channel. I was shocked that they would forbid us everything, and now they will tell us where to go. Guys, where are we heading? What's going on? 4 years of war. The country of Russia is economically collapsing, and I'm guessing this rather wealthy Russian woman is freaking out that she might not be able to go on shopping trips to Montenegro, that she won't be able to holiday in Italy or Turkey. This is her concern with her government now, being forced to live and stay in Russia. Putin more dug in than ever on the war. This war is going to keep going until either Putin is dead or Putin is arrested and removed by his own inner circle or people. He's never going to stop. There are no peace talks. There are no negotiations. There's nothing except the full restoration of the old Soviet borders that will make this elderly man happy. He wants empire. He wants legacy. He wants the Soviet Union back. Russian troops storm Pokrovsk to sell victory to Trump's administration. I don't believe this headline that the Russians are pressing in Pokrovsk to try and influence Trump or the peace talks. This has been their primary objective for almost a year, and they will probably eventually take it. Street battles, critical situation in Pokrovsk, outnumbered 8-1, but Ukrainians still hold. This is how it's supposed to be. For the defenders of the city of Pokrovsk, if you just surge in more Ukrainian soldiers, you're going to have higher casualties. There's a military science of how many people and where do you place to minimize your own casualties, but maximize the casualties of the attackers. That is what is happening with this city. They're trading land for time. This is Pokrovsk. The reports are is that the Russians are in the city. They're in the buildings. They're in the basements. The fights are going on right now. Eventually, I do believe Ukraine is going to have to pull out of this pocket and then go back to the next fortified line. This has been Russia's primary objective, taking Pokrovsk, since they took Avdiivka a year and a half ago. A year and a half to go about 10 kilometers. Next steps on Donetsk's map after Pokrovsk: first Konstantinivka, Sloviansk, and Kramatorsk. This is Moscow's occupation plan for Donetsk. Yes, the Russians are advancing, they're making progress. But at what cost? On what scale? I've been making these videos for 4 years, so I remember when Severodonetsk and Lysychansk was surrounded, about to be taken by the Russians in 2022. This was 3.5 years ago. The cauldron was collapsing, the Russians were encircling, they were about to have a breakthrough. That was 2022. What was the story of early 2023? And that was Bakhmut. Let's go to Bakhmut right here. Bakhmut was surrounded. The cauldron was collapsing. Russia was about to have a breakthrough. And they barely budged past Bakhmut in almost 3 years. The story of 2024 then was Avdiivka. Avdiivka is surrounded. The cauldron is collapsing. Russia's about to have a breakthrough. And now that we're in 2025, the story is about Pokrovsk. Russia, on average, in Donetsk, is taking one mid-sized city every year. So what's the story of 2026 going to be? Konstantinivka? The story of 2027? Kramatorsk? The story of 2028? Sloviansk? At the rates the Russians are going, they're going to run out of people. they're going to go bankrupt. They can't do this forever. But as long as the Allies continue supporting Ukraine, and Ukraine fights with fewer soldiers, takes fewer casualties, yes, Ukraine is going to outlast this. I don't even know what to call it, guys. 4 years to take 4 mid-sized towns in one oblast. But every night, this is what the Russians are planning. The night of October 30th, they launched 705 missiles and drones. Ukrainian air defense crews successfully shot down 623, but that means about 80 hit their targets. What do you do? What do you say in response to this? Cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, drones, everywhere. An apartment building in Zaporizhia was blown up. The pictures and videos are online. I could show you a destroyed building, but instead I'm going to show you people. These are the people who lived in this building, who lost their homes. They lost everything. And who do you see? Young mothers with young children, young couples with pets, and elderly people. These are the homes that the Russians are currently choosing to blow up. Russian strike hits children's hospital in Kherson, wounding 9, including 4 children. This is what President Zelensky has to say about the latest attack by Russia on a children's hospital. This morning, the Russian army struck a children's hospital in Kherson. They could not have been unaware of where they were striking. This was a deliberate Russian attack specifically against children, against medical personnel, against basic guarantees of life in the community. The hospital sustained heavy damage, and sadly there are injured among both the staff and the children who were being treated there. Russia is now the largest terrorist organization in the world, which is not only dragging out its terrorist war, but also trying to do everything possible to ensure that no opportunity to end the war succeeds. Russia deliberately undermines every meaningful diplomatic effort, discredits those helping to protect life, and seeks to create new sources of destabilization in Europe to make it harder for Europeans to assist Ukraine. Things for Kherson, the city, have been really bad for a long time. Human safari has now been going on for more than a year. Russia uses drones to kill farmers, to kill bus drivers, to kill anyone walking down the street to take their dog to the bathroom. This is what Russia has been doing for a year now. And we put out the reports, we show the videos. What does it mean? UN report accuses Russia of using drones to hunt civilians near front lines and force them from their homes. Russian forces have used drones to hunt and displace civilians from their homes near the front line in Ukraine. This is according to a new UN inquiry presented to the General Assembly. The Independent International Commission of Inquiry on Ukraine found that the coordinated drone assaults carried out more than a year amount to the crime against humanity of forcible population transfer. Yes, this is what the Russians are doing. They're killing anyone that walks the streets of Kherson because they want to depopulate the city. They think if they can depopulate the city, it'll be easier to have landing forces and retake the north bank of the Dnipro River. Friend of the channel is Zarina Zabriskie. She's been living in the city of Kherson. She refuses to leave, even though it's extremely dangerous. So in response to this UN report, this is her reaction.
This is where the United Nations Inquiry Committee is not going to take you. Accountability is not their department. I'll tell you what, accountability is everybody's department, and protection of people, of humans, are every person's department. How is this allowed to be happening on a daily basis? How many more people have to be killed? How many more old ladies have to be torn apart? How many more babies have to be butchered? This is a European city. It's completely deserted because everybody, whoever is left, is hiding. Today, the UN report is hitting the world. Watch it hit against the wall of silence and denial.
Russia must be defeated. We're going to continue, guys. Putin defies Trump with second nuclear weapons test in days, whenever Russia's military is performing terribly. What Putin likes to do is saber rattle his nuclear arsenal. This is what he does to puff up his chest, and I think he believes he's impressing his own people. Russia tests 100 megaton Poseidon torpedo capable of radioactive tsunami as pressure on Trump over Ukraine escalates. A couple days ago, Russia said a successful test of their new Wonder weapon, a cruise missile that can fly indefinitely. Cool. This one is an underground nuclear-capable torpedo that could create a tsunami that could kill a lot of people. This makes Russia happy, that they could indiscriminately destroy entire coastlines, entire cities, millions of people. This is what makes them happy. This is what they prefer to talk about. This is Putin visiting a hospital to go meet with wounded soldiers from the war he started, and the only thing he wanted to talk about was this successful missile test. You should know that yesterday we conducted another test of yet another promising system, the Poseidon unmanned underwater vehicle with a nuclear power unit. For the first time, we managed not only to launch it with a launch engine from a carrier submarine, but also to launch the nuclear power unit on which this vehicle passed a certain amount of time. This is a huge success. Poseidon's power significantly increases that of even our most promising Sarmat ICBM missile. There is nothing like the Sarmat in the world. We do not have it on duty yet, but it will be soon. But Poseidon far exceeds Sarmat in power. Moreover, in terms of speed and the depths at which this unmanned vehicle can operate, there is nothing comparable in the world. Putin is meeting, they're all actors, but he's supposed to be meeting with wounded soldiers from the war zone. How does this wonder weapon Poseidon missile help them win the war in Ukraine? It doesn't. It doesn't do a damn thing. But Russia's conventional military forces are so pathetic, so embarrassing. This is the only thing Putin wants to think about and talk about. Wonder weapons to scare NATO and scare the United States. Problem is that's not how Trump thinks and operates, and this is not going well. Trump orders Pentagon to immediately begin nuclear weapons testing. Experts warn of an arms race. So in response to Putin doing the hypersonic or the infinite flying cruise missile and this underwater Poseidon nuclear weapon, Trump put out this tweet: "The United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country." It's not true. Russia has more. This was accomplished including a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during my first term in office. Because of the tremendous destructive power, I hated to do it, but had no choice. Russia is second. No, they're not. And China is a distant third, but we will be even with China within 5 years. Because of other countries' testing programs, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. This tweet is insane, and I hope this goes nowhere. Trump frequently tweets stuff out, and there's no follow-up, there's no follow-through. Everyone just forgets about it 2 weeks later. I hope that is what happens because Trump's an idiot, and the Russians are going to explain to him maybe he doesn't understand. But this is what Peskov says. In his statement, President Trump mentioned that other countries are conducting nuclear weapons tests. Until now, we were not aware that anyone was conducting tests. But if he is referring to the testing of the Bereznik missile, that is by no means a nuclear test. All countries are engaged in developing their defense systems, but this is not a nuclear test. The United States is a sovereign country and has the right to make sovereign decisions, but I would like to recall President Putin's statement, which has been repeated many times. If anyone deviates from the moratorium, Russia will act accordingly. We don't test nuclear weapons anymore. We test delivery systems. We test ICBMs and torpedoes and cruise missiles that are nuclear capable, but nobody is irradiating the atmosphere doing active nuclear weapons tests. So I have no clue what Donald Trump is currently saying. The last time Russia tested a nuclear weapon was 1990. Last time the United States tested was 1992. The last time China tested was 1996. This is a very good thing that these three countries are not doing annual or quarterly tests of nuclear weapons. How many nuclear tests did the United States conduct? 1,054. We learned everything there was possibly capable of learning. We have the data, we have the figures, you can go to the archives. If you're a new scientist, that's how they learn. They just look at the tests that we did in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And there's nothing more to learn. We've already created thermonuclear weapons capable of killing everyone on the planet. There is no need for improvement. There is no need for additional testing. The world agreed on this 30 years ago. And I hope Trump doesn't try to undo it. There's a couple relevant treaties. The first one was from 1963. This is the Limited Test Ban Treaty, where all the nuclear powers agreed to only do underground tests, so we stopped. We did a couple tests in space. That was a bad idea. We did tests on land. We did tests in the ocean. So, since 1963, all tests have been underground. Even the North Koreans follow this. And then in 1996, this was the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. 180 nations, including Russia, agreed to it. Only China, India, and the United States did not sign it, though all three nations have agreed not to do any tests. If Trump undoes this, this is a very bad thing for the world. We don't want China and Russia, India, Pakistan, all of them, doing annual tests just to, one-up each other. Here's the chart showing the nuclear stockpiles. Russia estimated 4,309. This has been coming down for 20, 30 years. Same thing with the United States. The goal of the United States since the collapse of the Soviet Union is to just get Russia to decrease it. Keep decreasing it. And the United States is happy just being a couple hundred under Russia, so they have the superlative. Dictators love superlatives. The best. The most. Unfortunately, Donald Trump also loves superlatives, and now he thinks the United States should have the most nuclear weapons. But if Russia has that same mindset, we're back in the 1970s when both countries had 60,000 completely unnecessary nuclear weapons. Stay tuned. I hope that story goes away, guys. That is very concerning. Final video, I want to give a shout out to the people of Georgia. Georgian police clash, detained protesters, as the ruling party says it won local elections. The people of Georgia are still protesting every day. It's been more than a year since the pro-Russian faction took control of the country. There's been brutal oppression, and it's not been good for the opposition politicians, as well as ordinary citizens wanting to remain in a peaceful democracy. I saw this clip. This was just a Georgian man at a Katy Perry concert, and I want to share this with you guys.
Where are you from, George? I'm from Georgia, the Republic of Georgia in Europe, and I want to say 20% of the country is occupied by Russia, and we will have fireworks, and we will keep fighting for democracy, peace, and equality. Yes!
No, George, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. Could you please say all that again one more time?
I come from the Republic of Georgia, in Eurasia, next to Turkey. We consider ourselves as part of Europe. Right now, the government is pro-Russian, and we are having active protests all days, every day. I was in jail too because of protesting peacefully.
We stand with you, Georgia!
Continue supporting democracy everywhere in the world you can. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.